A few weeks ago, I noticed that an SMP I was on was hosting a PvP tournament, so I asked if I could join late, and I was accepted. But there was a slight problem. The event was hosted on a Turnos server, where everyone had a ping of over 100 ms. With shaky aim and shakier TPS, I went to the first round, which was Sword. Despite the weird arena, I managed to win pretty quickly. The next round would be UHC, but as you'll see, the organizers of the event didn't really know what the tier list kits actually were. Not only was natural regen actually on for some reason, but most of the items had the wrong enchants. Regardless, UHC is my most played game mode, so this round was already over. Where's your water, huh? After that relatively straightforward fight, I fooled around a little bit on the outskirts of the arena until it was time for the semi-finals. This was Diamond Pot, arguably the worst kit I could be playing. Not only was it a highly aim-dependent game mode, which would be torture to go through with such little warm-up and such high ping, but it was also one of my least played game modes. Regardless, I just had to hope that I could pull something off. Off to a great start. final round was a best of 3 using the netherite SMP kit, if you could even call it that. I mean, really, how do you mess up this badly? A bow, water buckets, lava? Even worse, the sword didn't have KP1 and I accidentally threw the only speed 1 potion, which shouldn't even have been in the kit, meaning that I didn't use speed 2 the entire first round. I won the first round and managed to convince the admins to enchant my sword with KB1. Not that anyone took knockback on this ping anyway, but regardless, I had to lock in and win round 2 for a flawless victory. After I won, the admins gave me op and all hell broke loose. Anyway, that's how I won the laggiest event I've ever been a part of.